So good day, ma'am. This is my report about the country of Singapore. So Singapore is a sovereign city-state and island country located in Southeast Asia, consisting of one main island and 62 other islets. So it is one of the world's most prosperous and highly developed nations with a highly skilled workforce and a highly efficient economy. So Singapore is known as the Lion City, or what we call the Singapura. So we have to discuss the customs of Singapore. So first is, while meeting a Singaporean, formal or informally, make sure to shake hands firmly with a slight bow while shaking hands. So in Singapore, kung makipag-meet ka mo sa mga Singaporean, formal or informal man, you need to make sure to shake hands firmly and slight bow. So next is, take off the shoes before entering anyone's house. Also remember to take them off before visiting any temple or mosque. So in Singapore, kung mag-enter ka mo sa anyone nga house, you need to take off your shoes. Tapos remember nyo nga, kung ara ka mo sa mga temple or mosque, dapat you need to take off your shoes. Make sure never to pinpoint someone or something with a finger, just raise your hand for indication. So in Singapore, if you have an indication, you need to raise your hand. Never ka mag-pinpoint sa someone or something. So next is, gender discrimination is a legal offense in Singapore, thus taking care not to disrespect anyone. So in Singapore, gender discrimination is legal. So dapat nga irespeto naton ang bawat isa. So, tipping is not customary in Singapore. Most of the restaurant add a 10% service charge in the bill, which case tipping is generally discouraged. Avoid tipping at worker centers and food courts. So, in Singapore, tipping is not a customary. Most of the restaurant naga-add sang 10% service charge sang ilang nga bill. Tapos you need to avoid tipping, especially na kung ara ka mo sa mga worker centers and food courts. Next is, refer to the middle-aged and elderly people as uncle or auntie at seem a sign of respect in Singapore. So in Singapore, elderly people is you must call them auntie or uncle as a sign of respect. Do not touch anyone's head, as it is considered sacred by many. On the contrary, the feet are regarded as dirty, so do not point them directly at someone. So in Singapore, dapat hindi nyo kaptan ang ulo sang iban, kay it is considered as sacred. Next is, casual clothes, shorts, t-shirts, flip-flops are acceptable in most places in Singapore. Pack formal outfits and dress shoes for higher-end restaurants. So, in Singapore, acceptable sa ila kung magsuot ka mo sa mga casual clothes, shorts, t-shirts, and flip-flops. So, ang flip-flops sa aton, slippers or chinelas. Tapos, kung maglakad ka mo sa mga higher-end restaurants, you need to pack formal outfits and dresses. So, next is the tradition. So, Thaipusam, essentially a Tanilian Hindu festival where the devotees worship Lord Murugan. It is now celebrated with grandeur in Singapore Festival. So, in Singapore, ang Tanilian Hindu Festival, amo na ang worship sang mga devotees, which is si Lord Murugan. It is celebrated in Singapore Festival. Next is Chinese New Year, celebrated for almost 15 days. The festive mode of Chinese New Year will fill your spirit with positive energy. So, most of the Chinese New Year, nagasuot gid sila sang red nga t-shirts, or most nga makita mo sa ilang nga place is color red. Next is the Dragon Boat Festival. This festival consists of boats with the front of Adam with the head of dragon to pay homage to a political figure in Singapore, Q.U.An. There are races and people accumulate in large numbers to cheer for their team with great enthusiasm. So, ang Dragon Boat of Singapore is consists sang boats, tapos ang atubangan niya is may ara nga head sang dragon tapos nga may ara nga political figure ni Q.U.An. May ara sa mga races and accumulate large of number of people nga ga-cheer sa ila nga team. Next is the Christmas. Singapore definitely know how to imbibe the spirit of Christmas by lighting up trees and making Yuletide menus widely available. A stroll along Arcade Road and you will be starstruck by the overall beauty. So next is the basic etiquette of Singapore. First is visiting. It is expected that the guest will bring a small gift to the host. The type of gift expected may differ depending on the host ethnicity. So in Singapore, it is expected nga magdala ang guest sang any small gift sa isa ka host. Nakadepende sa kung ano ang isa ang ethnicity sa isa ka host. It is common for people to remove their shoes when entering someone's home. So, hambal ko kaina nga it is important to remove your shoes when entering someone's home. An invitation should be acknowledged whether or not one is able to attend. Next is the eating. Food is usually placed on the table with all dishes served at once and shared among everyone. So in Singapore, food is usually placed on the table with all the dishes and shared among everyone. It is polite to allow the host to select all the dishes. It is proper practice to begin eating only once the host has invited and guests to do so. Common utensils are chopstick and soup spoons. So in Singapore, the common utensils are chopsticks and soup spoons. Some ethnic groups do not eat particular meats. For example, Malays typically do not eat pork and Indian often do not eat meat. So in Singapore, there are different ethnic groups, especially na sa Malay nga wala sila gakaon sa pork, tapos sa Indian, they do not eat beef. So next is the taboos in Singapore. First is being late is an insult. Punctuality is important when doing business in Singapore. Keeping someone waiting or coming in late for an appointment considered an insult, especially if it involves business executive compliments appearance. Next is correcting an older person. In Singapore, business custom, it is believed that the oldest member is the most competent and should thereby take the higher position. Next is criticize your homeland or country. Talking about badly the government and the city island as a whole is a no-no in Singapore. The general public may find this person or critic as the scandalous, rude, and unpatriotic. Next is moving things your feet. It's also cultural taboo in Singapore to touch or move things using your feet because they believe that this body part is unclean. Next is too quick to respond. As part of Singaporeans' listening etiquette, you should be very careful when responding to the someone you're talking to. Avoid interrupting the person you're talking to him. When you respond, try not to make in hurried manner. Next is yelling or speaking loudly. As part of cultural taboo in Singapore, a person is expected to speak in a low and calm tone. Raising your voice may indicate intense and negative emotions like anger and disappointment. Next is spitting. Spitting in public places regarded to your location, spitting on roads or spelling nasal mucus is unhygiene and may transmit contagious disease. In Singapore, this behavior is punishable with fine up to $1 In some cases, people caught spitting in public could face lawsuit. And lastly, snacking on public transport. Eating and drinking while riding the Singaporean mass transit would get you in trouble. So last is the religion of Singapore. So according to the 2020 census data of the 4 million citizens and permanent residents, 31.1% of the population of citizen and permanent residents are Buddhist, 18.9% Christian, 15.6% Muslim, predominantly Sunni, 8.8% Taoist, 5% Hindu, and 20% identify as having no religion.